So the description was that the talks were held in a very positive environment. The Russian president wasn't just focusing on Ukraine. He was focusing on his core concerns, Russia's core concerns, also on business ties between America and Russia, which he said since the new administration had come, had grown by 20% and should be higher to reach its potential, not just cooperation between Moscow and Washington, D.C., but the Russian Far East and the American West Coast and cooperation in space. Let me quickly bring in India Today's Rohit Sharma, our man in Washington, D.C., and Pranay Upadhyay, who joined me on this special broadcast. Also with me is Dr. Survo Kamal Datta, joining us as an analyst on this broadcast. But Rohit, to you first, what's the key takeaway in the United States of America? The fact that the two met, President Putin described President Trump as a dear neighbor, spoke of Anchorage, Alaska, where the meeting took place. The distance between the two countries, divided just by the Strait of Bearings, is a couple of kilometers, 4 to 5 kilometers at the most there. But was there a meeting of the hearts and mind in that positive environment?
Well, look, I think there was a lot of flattery, Gaurav, I think, coming from President Putin. I mean, he said so many words. I mean, I think a lot of people were surprised that he started with the opening remarks. Usually, it's the host country's leader that would start with the opening remarks. But it was, we saw them walk in and President Putin just started talking and started giving remarks, which was unusual for a lot of people. And then he started getting into, going about, how they both fought wars together, the US and the Russians. And there was this relationship right now probably was experiencing the lows of Cold War, and that he wants to turn a leaf and wants President Trump to know that he's interested in and invested in getting a ceasefire. He used the word ceasefire, but a resolution to this war. So I think there was a lot of flattery, frankly. And he was, I mean, trying to be as nice as he could to President Trump. And I think he won diplomatically. I think he was first, this is his first time ever on the US side in the past 10 years. But not any other US president has invited him. So I think diplomatically, it's a huge win. He did not commit to any ceasefire. That's a huge win. The fact that he was able to bring in a business delegation and talk to President Trump for over 2.5 hours, including trying to convince the Americans to do business with and increase trade with the Americans, is a big deal. As far as President Trump is concerned, I think he wanted some kind of a roadmap towards a ceasefire. And this is what he's been saying after the meeting, that yes, they've talked about it. They've talked about land. They've talked about other things. They've talked about NATO, and that he's going to be dialing up Zelensky and others in Europe to find out how that would pan out. And frankly, then going on Fox News saying the ball is in Zelensky's court, and he wants Zelensky to strike a deal with the Russians. So a lot that has to happen on the American side and European, and also including Zelensky's side. As far as I think Vladimir Putin is concerned, he did not concede anything. He walked in with the war raging, and he left with the war still intact and going on in Ukraine. So President Trump actually needs to find or at least sell his roadmap to Ukraine and to European partners and see what could become of it.
Indeed, and let me quickly bring in Pranay. Pranay, the kind of words that were used, flattery or great diplomacy, Trump, let's begin with what Trump said. Progress made, no deal till there's a deal, but I believe we had a very productive meeting, many points that we agreed on, and a couple of big points we haven't quite gotten there, but we are making headway. He didn't go into specifics, but the American media, Pranay, is quite describing this meeting as a big win for President Putin, as Rohit also put it. How would both sides look at it? A win-win, except for those who want the war to continue?
Before I answer your question, Gaurav, did you notice that what President Putin said? He said that there has been a 20% increase in bilateral trade.
Absolutely.
Since the Trump administration came. And, from our point of view, from the Indian point of view, this is an interesting and a very significant fact given by President Vladimir Putin from the US side. Now, coming back to your point, absolutely. President Putin, he has dealt various US presidents since Bill Clinton to Donald Trump in his second tenure. He knows how to deal. He gave President Donald Trump what he wanted to hear in terms of that this war would have not started in 2022 had Donald Trump would have been in White House. Two, that he thinks that both big powers should decide, and President Donald Trump quite agreed on that thing. That was a departure that both sides agreed not to take any questions, to maintain the secrecy of the talks, to maintain that a lot of things need to go in before they announce before any significant decision that comes on Russia-Ukraine front, because President Trump also indicated that now he's going to call various NATO leaders as well as the various partner countries, and also the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. Definitely, in
Okay.
all likelihood, it was quite expected that the US media would term it. Even John Bolton, who worked as his NSA, he said that
Yes.
Putin won. Though Trump did not lose anything, but Putin definitely won.
What an interesting description by John Bolton.